It was unexpected that Aryna Sabalenka would be investigated for employing unethical tactics against Eala. Yes, the dominant power in women's tennis, Sabalenka, has faced criticism for what happened to the young Filipina star. The entire game was turned upside down by a single muttered complaint and a single moment on the court. In addition to feeling uneasy, fans could feel the shockwave echoing around the arena. Since Sabalenka didn't seem to be playing games that night. Long pauses, stare-downs, and subtle movements all looked prearranged. When Eala finally turned to face the chair umpire, the spectators realized something was seriously amiss. Tennis authorities were compelled to intervene as screenshots proliferated and accusations intensified. Now the question is simple. Was Sabalenka just being competitive, or did she cross a line that she couldn't go back? Everything began long before the argument broke out. Long before screenshots, hashtags, and probes were all over the timeline. It begins in the peaceful time between competitions. That location where ambition sharpens and pressure develops discreetly, shaping both rivals and champions. 4 years, Aryna Sabalenka has worked hard to establish a fierce and cruel reputation in the sport. She was a cyclone of strength and resolve, her ascension was quick, and her presence was undeniable. Her admirers were drawn to her pure, undiluted force. Her ability to control a match with just a powerful serve and a glance terrified her opponents. She wasn't just a high seed, she was the standard. But every era has its share of turmoil. For Sabalenka, it took the form of the fearless Filipina sensation Alexandra Eala, whose rise felt more like an explosion than a climb. At this early point, Eala shouldn't have threatened the trip. She was not meant to compete with veterans who had spent 10 years in the trenches. But she succeeded in doing so. With every stride she went into the spotlight, the hierarchy seemed to waver. Every upset she created further eroded the calm that great players believed they possessed. Yes, she engaged in dangerous play with young people. Conviction. There was a real, tangible feeling that she belonged to the elite. And such an attitude has the power to shake even the most resilient champions. As Eala's momentum grew, the kind of rumors that begin in locker rooms, simmer during press conferences, and explode online began to spread. Was she rising too quickly? Was her confidence being misconstrued as arrogance? Or was there a deeper issue at hand? The conflict between Sabalenka and Eala did not emerge overnight. Quietly, it began. A cold handshake here, a clipped word there. There was enough for supporters to begin whispering, but nothing that could be conclusively identified. Why does Sabalenka seem anxious all the time? Is Eala's name mentioned? Is this rivalry sincere or personal? When the tour arrived at their joint event, the mood was already tight. A seasoned lady defending her territory. A novice who refuses to bow. A pair of meteors approached one another. Even before the alleged dirty methods and the alleged probe, you could feel the excitement when they eventually crossed paths again. The energy shift that athletes discuss was not this one. A fault line was forming beneath their feet. Eala entered the courtroom with a cheerful outlook and a smile on her face. Sabalenka strolled with a stone face, her shoulders squared and her mouth tightened like a warrior entering a famous battle. Crowds could understand what they were witnessing without commentary. The first 5 rallies alone exposed the scheme. Power versus precision, dominance versus hunger, and passion versus instinct. Instead of a Grand Slam champion or a top 5 opponent, Sabalenka was pushed for the first time in a long time by a teenager with nothing to lose and everything to prove. In those early interactions, you could see the crack growing in their dynamic rather than in their games. Eala's poise appeared to provoke in Sabalenka a sense of territoriality and stubbornness that murmured, "She's not taking my position." It was only the beginning. Even before the match reached its crucial point, the tension was strong enough to cut with a racket. After that, what happened? At this point, the controversial gestures, allegations, and storm that would compel Sabalenka to participate in a phony investigation started. 2 players, 1 court, and an upcoming rivalry. And the world still didn't know that this wasn't just another competition. It was the spark that would ignite everything. Something changed as soon as the second set began. Something subtle but powerful enough to alter the court's overall atmosphere. It was beyond explanation. Everyone could sense it, even the spectators in the upper rows and the pundits and analysts, because Sabalenka, who usually exudes calm and intimidation, suddenly began acting strangely. The first step was the pace. Sabalenka exceeded her usual preparation boundaries by bouncing the ball 15, 16, and sometimes 17 times before a serve. Fans, the umpire, and I all noticed. At first, it seemed to be anxiety, the kind that sometimes affects even the most experienced sportsman. Then came the timed, sharp, and obviously purposeful stares. Sabalenka's usual competitive stare-downs were not well known. No, these were colder and specifically targeted Eala's rhythm. Eala's body language tensed. Her service motion slowed. A young athlete's confidence can be frail, and Sabalenka seemed to be pushing the envelope. Then came the moment that changed everything. Midway during a furious rally, Sabalenka made a deep guttural growl just as I was ready to swing, so I turned to the chair umpire, not to protest or debate. It was no ordinary grunt. It wasn't even part of the rally. It appeared to be timed. Eala hesitated and reset her feet. When Sabalenka stood straight at the baseline with an unreadable expression, the whisper started. What was that? Did she do that on purpose? Is Sabalenka trying to get in her way? Normally, one odd moment might go unnoticed, but this was only the beginning. On the very next point, Sabalenka delayed her serve once more, this time by nearly 30 seconds as opposed to only a couple. She moved to her towel, went back to the baseline, and then halted, staring directly at Eala as the audience grew furious. Uncertain on whether to wait or reset, Eala's changed her weight. More frustrated looks, more murmurs. When Sabalenka finally threw the ball for the serve, she stopped in mid-step, caught it, and smiled. Even though it was a simple gesture, social media went crazy when it was caught on slow-motion playback. Screenshots began to circulate online. Sabalenka is staring down at Eala. It's taking too long for Sabalenka. Sabalenka is interfering with play. Fans started piecing together each moment as though gathering evidence in a case. Is she using unethical practices? Why is Sabalenka acting this way? Eala deserves better. Tension flared on the court when Eala finally raised her hand to the umpire. Nor theatrical, nor irate, just exhausted. She was tired of the delays, the interruptions, and the attempts to pretend that the psychological pressure didn't affect her. The umpire nodded, signifying that Sabalenka would go without stopping, and the formerly unbiased crowd began to shift. A few murmurs of disapproval were followed by waves of discomfort. It was starting to feel like a silent storm in the arena. For Sabalenka, the frustration was just beginning. The arrogant and fiercely competitive veteran didn't enjoy being called out. She tightened her grip on her racket, shrugged her shoulders, and murmured something under her breath that was barely audible to the microphones but sufficient to cause an explosion. Commentators feigned ignorance. However, when Eala's attitude significantly changed and the onlookers realized something had been uttered, the match was no longer a match. It became a battlefield. Every point gained weight. Every hesitation raised suspicions. Every look seemed like a ticking time bomb. This tight coil of tension was subsequently recognized by fans as the trigger. When did Sabalenka's conduct start to seem suspicious? At that time, which will soon result in a fictitious inquiry, Eala was playing two opponents, the one on the other side of the net and the one inside her own head. Because after that, things grew worse. If the tension inside the stadium was explosive, then what happened outside was nuclear. Sabalenka had no control over the narrative once video clips from the game surfaced on social media. Everyone, including fans, journalists, and former players, had an opinion, and none of them kept it to themselves. What had started out as faint audience murmurs quickly escalated into a full-fledged online storm. There was only one clip at first. Sabalenka stopped mid-serve, grinned, and glanced at Eala before heading out to reset again. In a slow-motion repost on X, formerly Twitter, it was called Mind Games or Dirty Tactics. In just 1 hour, the video had over 500,000 views. Then, just prior to Eala's stroke, Sabalenka appeared to groan. A small real-time disruption that is easily observable during playback. Fans zoomed in, froze frames, and added subtitles. The body of evidence grew with each new detail. According to a well-known tennis blogger, this isn't competitiveness. It's psychological warfare. Another fan said that Sabalenka would blow up if a younger player did this to her. By late afternoon, even objective analysts began to offer their opinions. A former professional who was renowned for her composure wrote, "Gamesmanship is part of the sport, but there are limits." This crossed one, and as the commentators weighed in, the wildfire became out of control. Reaction channels uploaded minute-by-minute breakdowns. Sports influencers said it was the most uncomfortable game of the season. Supporters of Eala from the Philippines banded together to condemn what they saw as a veteran's harassment of a rising star. Memes took over timelines. They drew parallels. Narratives grew more inflexible. But the real blow came when a courtside microphone recorded Sabalenka's enraged ranting. A scarcely audible statement that sounded dangerously near to an insult. Without a doubt, the audio is muddy, distorted, and unclear. However, viewers on the internet don't wait for clarification. The choice is made by them. They pass judgment. They attack. Within a few hours, #StandWithAlla began to gain traction in a number of Asian countries. Another hashtag was present. Tens of thousands of users believe it to be true even if it is fake. Tennis fans began tagging officials and demanding statements, transparency, and consequences. Videos of Eala having a quiet conversation with the umpire were widely shared as proof of her stress. The burgeoning star's patience contrasted with Sabalenka's mounting irritation in side-by-side collapses. Suddenly, the match wasn't the main focus of the story. It was contentious. The following morning, a succinct, vague statement from the fictional tennis authorities said that they were looking for any potential sportsmanship problems in the event's film. No name was given to Sabalenka. Please click the bell icon, subscribe, and share in the comments what you think this rivalry portends for the future if you enjoyed this video.